Hi everyone and welcome to the 12th video of the Math 22 review series. For this video, we will be talking about functions as power series, arising from geometric power series and differentiation. So let's just recall that whenever a power series is convergent, the resulting sum of that power series is a function. We can consider that as a function that is given by f of x is equal to this power series right here for each x in the interval of convergence of the series. So next, let's try to recall na we can find a non-series expression for this function f of x together with yung mga x na kinoconsider natin, which are the numbers in the interval of convergence. So yun yung mga values of x that will make the non-series expression valid. No? And at the same time, we can also find a power series representation for a non-series expression g of x, again with the same set of x. So I hope that you can appreciate yung idea dito. No? Whenever we have a power series and convergent siya, pwede natin siya ma-express as a function. And para sa atin, convenient yun kasi we are given options na on which one we want to consider when we have a certain problem. Minsan kasi mas madali na ginagamit na yung function, minsan mas madali na ginagamit na yung power series. So gusto natin ma-express yung function 1 over x plus 2 as a power series, and then we want to find its interval of convergence. So dito, a short tip, no? Try to recall the geometric series. And if you can recall that, that will be very useful sa pag-solve ng problem nito. Okay? But for now, I want you to try it for yourself. And after you try, we will be discussing the problem. Okay? So I hope you did try the problem. So tingnan natin yung approach natin dito. First, remember, okay, before that, remember na yung geometric series is of the form the sum of r to the n, where n runs from 0 up to positive infinity. So, it's equal to 1 over 1 minus r. Whenever yung absolute value ng r natin is less than 1. Yung r dito, it's the common ratio, if you can remember. It's from high school, so hopefully you can still remember. If hindi naman, well, now you know. So, whenever you have this series, itong r is the same r dito, no? So, whenever you have this series here, pwede mo express in terms of this function here. Or you can go the other way around. And that's exactly what we're going to do dito. We want to express this in the form 1 over 1 minus r so that we can express the function as a series, no? And eventually, this will become a power series. So doing that, kailangan natin malaman kung paano nga ba natin gagawin yun. And for this part, it's a little bit fun kasi algebraic manipulation pa lang tayo dito. So, tingnan natin. So, we want it to be of the form 1 minus something. 1 over 1 minus something rather. So, notice na this is true. Kasi if you try to take away the 1, you have x plus 1 plus 1, no? And gusto mo, let's say, extract me negative dito. You have negative 1 times negative x minus 1, so plus 1. So, you're just going to rewrite this as 1 minus negative x minus 1. Okay? So, that's how we're going to write that. And then, gaya nga ng nasabi ko, pwede na natin to ma-express as a series kasi nasa form na siya ng isang geometric series as discussed kanina. Okay? So I hope you can see that. Yung nangyayari dito, yung tinitake natin as r, yung r natin will be this negative x minus 1 here. So eventually, yung x dito will be replaced with negative x minus 1. So if you do that, we will get the power series representation of our desired expression, and we will work it out as follows. So ito, again, this is still equal to 1 over x plus 2, no? And then, this one here, ilabas na natin yung negative para mas maganda tingnan. So, meron tayong negative 1 times x plus 1, and then distribute the exponent. So, we will end up with negative 1 to the n times x plus 1 to the n. So, ito, it's already power series representation. This will serve as our itong part na to will be the c sub n. And then, you can even write x as x minus negative 1 to the n. Okay? So, again, this series will converge for, well, actually, dapat negative x minus 1, yung absolute value na should be less than 1. But you can just extract the negative. And if ilabas mo yung negative, since absolute value to, parang manineglect yung negative, no? Mawawala siya. So we have this inequality na lang. Ito yung parang maging interval convergence niya. And to get the exact interval, since nasa absolute value expression pa siya na inequality, you just write x plus 1 here should be less than 1, and it should be greater than the negative of this 1 here. So ayan siya. And then you just distribute this 1 to both sides, and then you will eventually find that yung x is indeed between negative 2 and 0. Exclusive siya sa endpoints na. So hindi kasali yung negative 2 and 0. Okay? So that's actually it for this problem. Madali lang siya dito, no? As long as you are familiar with the tools that you need. So as advised, try to be really familiar with the geometric series, and kahit sa ibang series na alam natin, it will be very useful for your exam. Let's have the second problem. So ngayon, you want to express yung function naman na 9 over 3 minus 2x squared as a power series and still find its interval of convergence. So again, dito parang familiar ulit, no? Parang geometric series ulit yung gagamitin with the form of the function. So your task now will just be to find a way to express this in the form 1 over 1 minus r. Kung ano man yung r na to. Okay? And maybe you have some constants sa labas, but I'll leave it to you for now. So sige, try it out and then pag-usapan natin in a bit. Okay, so hopefully nakuha niyo yung idea na kung ano yung kailangan gawin dito. So let's look at the solution. So again, gusto natin siya ma-express in the form of a geometric series. Kaya nasabi ako kanina. So the first step that you can notice is, well, ilabas muna natin yung 9. Let's factor out 9 so that it's 1 over something. Okay, yung fraction na yun. And then sa baba naman, ilabas din natin yung 3 so that yung term dito will be 1 na lang. So kung gagawin natin yon, we have 9 times 1 all over 3 times 1 minus 2/3 x squared, right? So you can also cancel out the 9. It will just cancel out. So 3 na lang yung nasa labas. And as you can see, yung nasa loob, itong fraction na to, it's already in the form that we want, no? It's of the form 1 over 1 minus r. 1 over 1 minus r. Wherein yung r natin is actually 2/3 x squared. Okay? So we can then express this as a series, and yun yung gagawin natin in the next slide. So we have it here. Copy lang natin yung 3, no? Kasi constant lang naman siya. So our series now is a geometric series of the form the summation of 2x squared over 3 raised to n from 0 to infinity. Okay? So yung next na lang ay, well, simplify lang natin yung series na to. So we have 2 to the n, x raised to 2n over 3 raised to n. Dinistribute lang natin yung n dito, laws of exponents. And then, yung pwede mo pang gawin, no, ay itong 3 tsaka 3 sa baba, 3 to the n sa baba. You can simplify that. So making 3 to the n minus 1 na lang siya. Okay? So laws of exponents ulit. And then, ngayon, the interval will be the absolute value of 2x squared over 3. Kasi ito yung r natin, remember. It should be less than 1. So it will converge for all values of x in this interval here. So for the next problem, medyo iba na yung approach natin for the next problem. Gusto natin express yung negative 1 over x squared plus 4x plus 4. Still as a power series, hanapin pa rin yung interval of convergence. So a little tip from earlier. No? Remember na 1 over x plus 2 may power series representation siya. Remember from problem 1? Pwede mo magamit yung idea na yun in this problem here, as you can see. So try to do that. And I would also advise na we will be using differentiation for this problem. So if you try to solve it, you keep those ideas in mind. Okay, so kumusta naman yung pag-solve nyo? Sana na-pause yung video na try nyo. So For the solution of this problem, notice na yung nasa baba, it's a perfect square trinomial. So, pwede natin ayusin muna algebraically yung function. So, we'll write it as -1 all over x plus 2 squared. Okay? Tapos, there's a magic trick. Magic trick yung term. Pero may crucial step tayong gagawin dito. You have to notice na yung derivative ng 1 over x plus 2 is equal to the expression that we want. So, you have to notice na ito is equal to the derivative of 1 over x plus 2. So, why is this important? Bakit importante yung idea na to? Well, kanina, from problem 1, nakahanap tayo ng power series representation for this one here. No? Medyo mahaba siya. But you can go back to the video if you want. So, may power series representation to. And what does this tell you? Kung ito is equal to the derivative of this one, then maybe yung power series representation niya is just the derivative of the power series representation ng 1 over x plus 2. And that's exactly what we're going to do dito. Okay? So, totoo yon again, kasi ito yung expression na gusto nating hanapan ng series. Equal siya to the derivative ng isang function. So, it should be equal to the derivative of the power series representation ng function natin. Okay? So, that's a very good idea na pwedeng gamitin dito. And kung titingnan natin, okay, ito yung function na 1 over x plus 2. And ito yung power series representation niya. So, if you take the derivative of both sides of this equation, what we will get is, itong -1 over x plus 2 squared, equal lang siya sa derivative ng summation na to. Okay? And this is pretty convenient kasi we have the derivative of a sum. And remember, since linear operator to, in other words, kung meron kang d over dx a plus b, is the same as the derivative of a plus the derivative of b. Okay? So parang nare-distribute, I don't know what's a better term, pero parang nare-distribute yung derivative operator natin. Okay? In other words, pwede natin siya masulat in this expression here. So kunin lang natin yung derivative ng bawat term, and then we'll take the summation of that, and that will be the power series representation ng hinahanap natin. Okay? So doing that, madali lang naman ma-differentiate yung term na to. -1 to the n is a constant. Tapos ito, you just take out the n, tapos -1 sa exponent, and ito na. Ito na actually yung power series representation ng hinahanapan natin function. Okay? So, ano naman yan yung interval of convergence niya? Well, the interval of convergence should be the same as the interval of convergence ng nito. And remember, from problem 1, yung interval of convergence niya is -2, 0, right? So, ganun pa rin dito. Pero, this time, we have to check kasi it's very much possible, may possibility na pwede siya mag-converge at the endpoints at -2 and 0. So, i-check natin. If x is -2, magko-converge ba yung series natin? And if x is equal to 0, magko-converge din kaya yung series natin. So, unahan natin yung x equals 0. So, kung 0 yung x, again, yung expression kanina is -1 to the n, x plus 1 to the n. So, yung x kapag maging 0 siya, it will just be 1 dito. So, itong series na to, this is just equal to the summation of n times -1 to the n. Okay? Itong 1 raised to anything is just 1. So, ito na yung matitira sa atin. Now, does this series converge or diverge? Well, if pwede tayong gumamit ng mga tests, no? But the best one that we can probably use is yung divergence test now. Kasi, yung limit kasi ng n times -1 to the n, hindi naman siya maging equal to 0. So, if you can notice the behavior ng sum, let's say kung n equals 1, we have -1. If n is 2, we have +2, then -3 plus 4, and so on. Okay? So, for one thing, if you can see yung sequence natin will alternate between -1, +2, -3, and 4. So, hindi siya mag-approach to 0, no? Hindi siya making 0 as n approaches infinity. And the same thing, no, yung sum niya, if you try to check yung partial sums niya, hindi siya maging convergent. Hindi natin makikita nagko-converge siya. So, by the divergence test, since yung limit nga ay hindi equal to 0, which is a necessary condition para mag-converge yung isang series, then we can verify na hindi nga nagda-diverge yung series na to. So, x equals 0 is not a point of convergence. Now, kung x is equal to negative 2 naman, again, x plus 1, so negative 1 na lang to. And then, we'll just write it as follows, no? Copy ito, and then negative 1 to the n, tapos negative 1 to the negative 1. So, yung mangyayari dito, this one here, if you combine them together, it will be negative 1 raised to 2n. Pero, negative 1 raised to 2n, this is just equal to 1 raised to n, no? Kasi negative 1 squared is 1. Tapos, yung n, it will retain. Okay? So, ganito na siya. So, we will end up with negative n. So, yung negative dito, it's coming from negative 1 raised to negative 1. So, ito, this will still be negative 1. Tapos, negative n times 1 raised to n. Yun yung summation. We'll get the summation of that past series. Tapos, you can simplify this as the summation of negative n from 1 to positive infinity. And this will also diverge. Mas madali ito makita, no? Kasi n goes without top. It will approach negative infinity as n goes to infinity. To make that more precise, pwede natin gamitin yung divergence test ulit. The limit of negative n as n approaches infinity is negative infinity. So, hindi siya equal to 0. So, by the divergence test, this series will still diverge. Okay? So, in other words, yung nahanap natin ay yung series na nakuha natin dito, yung interval of convergence is negative 2, 0 pa rin. So, it will not converge at any of the endpoints. Okay? So, that's it for this video. We were able to solve 3 problems and we were able to express functions as power series and find the intervals of convergence. So, I hope that you learned something in this video and sana nakatulong siya sa pag-prepare nyo for the exam. So, best of luck sa long exam nyo and we will see you in the next video. Thank you.